Okay, I'm live. It is Wednesday, February 25th. I'm going to look at my calendar here. Yeah, February 25th at 6:11 p.m. Now, this is going to be a brief video, quickly done, because I'm supposed to go meet my son and his girlfriend for supper, so it won't take too long. But just regarding last night's State of the Union, and I know some of you probably watched it. My wife watched it. I didn't watch it. I watched bits and pieces of it. And my wife watched Governor Spanberger's response. I did not. I figured, as is often the case, I would see the bits and pieces of it and the film clips later, which I am doing. And of course, I've got the transcript of her speech up here on my computer here. So, just based on a couple of things I saw of it earlier today, and you know, Trump deranged. We've got a choice. Either Democrats are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome and all that entails, or Democrats are just fucking stupid. I take your pick, either one. How does Spanberger say the shit that she says on national TV in response to Trump's State of the Union, which, by the way, was entirely too long? I'll have to agree with that. And she thinks that, well, most of us do. Those of us with functioning brain cells do notice, but the Democrats just choose to ignore it. They pretend like she's not really saying what she said. She doesn't really mean it. It's not real. You're just imagining things. All right. So let's look at the transcript. All right. So she says, as I campaigned for governor last year, I traveled to every corner of Virginia. I heard the same pressing concern everywhere. Costs are too high in housing, healthcare, energy, and childcare. And I know these same conversations are being had all across the country. Really? That's what you're going to start with. Now, those of you who see my videos from time to time, please share this with one of your Democrat friends, if you still have any Democrat friends, and see if they can answer these questions for you. Because frankly, I'm stumped. I don't have an answer. Aside from just being incredibly stupid or suffering from the Trump derangement syndrome, which apparently blinds them to reality. They just go through life with blinders on and they don't see the shit around them. So Spanberger is going to tell us that people are complaining about costs, and we're supposed to believe that she cares. Spanberger, as the lead Democrat in the state of Virginia, wants us to believe that she's concerned about you and me and our costs and how we're getting through life. Bullshit. She's raised or proposes to raise over 50 different taxes, including things like dog walking. Come on, Democrats, all you dog owning Democrats out there, how are we going to pay for or pay a tax on dog walking? How does that work? Number of steps, amount of time? I mean, how do you tax dog walking? Dog grooming. They're going to tax dog grooming. They want to put a tax on your use of your leaf blower. If I say anything here, if I touch on any item that's going to save you money, Democrats, that's going to reduce your cost of living. See, I have to say the word twice because I have to believe that you're so fucking stupid that you don't understand what the word reduce means. How is that going to reduce your cost of living? How are any one of the proposed tax increases, including Virginia income tax, which, if I remember correctly, is going to go up another, 13.8%? Add that to your federal income tax and add that to all the other taxes you pay. Explain to me, make it make sense, how that's going to reduce your cost of living. And she's got the nerve to ask you to ask yourself, is what Donald Trump is doing reducing your cost of living? Okay, legitimate question. It's a question you should ask. Now ask yourself that same question. Is what Governor Spanberger proposes to do going to decrease or lower my cost of living? Well, is it? I mean, if it's a legitimate question for President Trump, it's certainly a legitimate question at the state level for your new governor, Comrade Spanberger. So explain to me, Democrats, and I'm asking you specifically because you seem to be the ones who bought into all this bullshit. Explain to me how that works. Explain to me how anything that Spanberger has proposed or intimated that she plans to do is going to lower your cost of living. It would seem to me, if she's so concerned about what Trump is doing and that Trump and his actions are going to increase your cost of living, wouldn't you think that then at the state level, she would make some sort of effort to lower your costs, at least here at the state level, rather than adding on to what the feds are doing? Now, again, another one of the things about Democrats that I just find fascinating is, they're so concerned about the tariffs. Trump was proposing tariffs, and those tariffs are tax increases, and they're going to cost you more money. Okay, those of us who understand economics, which I'll grant you is not most Americans, understand that tariffs will, in fact, increase costs on certain items. If you're paying a tariff for cars to be imported from, say, South Korea, Japan, wherever, then the cost of that car is going to go up. It's going to cost you more, Mr. and Mrs. America. That's what tariffs do. Okay, so now the Democrats are all concerned about tariffs and the increase in taxes that might cause. When did that happen, Democrats? When did you suddenly become concerned about our pocketbooks? That would make for a dramatic change in your way of doing things. So again, you people just never fail to amaze me. So I'm scrolling through her transcript here. Okay. She's complaining that Republicans in Congress, they remain unwilling to assert their constitutional authority to stop him. Okay. Who's going to stop you, Spanberger? Huh? Is it going to be Virginia's Republicans, gutless cowards that they are? Is it going to be your fellow Democrats who, in fact, support your ideas and want to see the increases in spending that you propose? In fact, isn't it you and the Democrats in the General Assembly who want a pay raise, who think that they should get paid more Where's that money going to come from? Certainly, that's not going to cost us, the taxpayers, more money, right? I mean, how do you do it? How do you just completely ignore reality? How do you ignore simple, basic common sense? Are you that deranged about Trump? Do you hate the man that much, so much that it causes you to be unable to think rationally, logically? How does that work? I mean, really, I need to understand. I want to understand. I'd like to understand, but somebody needs to explain it to me because mull it over in my mind as much as I do, I can't make it make sense. It's just so out there, so incredibly stupid that I can't understand how a grown adult can think that way. I just, when I was a kid growing up, I remember my mom, dad, my grandparents, the adults in my life talking about things, mulling over ideas. And it seemed to me, based on what I knew at that time as a kid and what I saw and learned, the grown-ups were smarter. Grown-ups, you could count on them to at least think things through and try to make it make sense. When did it go away? When did that stop? When did the grown-ups stop being grown-ups? Now, I mean, watch the State of the Union. Watch the way the Democrats behave. It's like watching a bunch of petulant little children on the playground. When he said something that made me mad, so I'm not going to play with him. I don't like him anymore. I mean, what happened to you, Democrats? What happened to you to make you incapable of or unable to think? Why are you willing to just throw all of it out the window just because you hate one man so much? Look, let me make you aware of something. I hated Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. I hated Barack Obama. I hated Joe Biden. But that didn't interfere with my ability to think and to apply logic to anything they did or said. Why does that happen? What is it about Trump that has you so deranged that you look at him or you listen to him and immediately logic goes out the window? You just stop thinking. I'm not going to think about it. And then in the State of the Union, you see him, Trump asked, who believes that the primary focus of the government is to protect American citizens and not illegal aliens? And of course, the Democrats don't stand up. Look, just a brief bit of advice for the Democrats out there. You're not helping yourself. Even Democrat voters see that and think, what the fuck is wrong with you? You don't want to protect Americans? That's your primary job. That's the whole purpose behind the federal government. Read some history. I know you don't want to read the Constitution, you don't want to read the Declaration of Independence, but read some of the history leading up to that. Maybe some world history, because there are things that have happened throughout the history of man that can give you some idea of what direction we should be headed in. But it all goes out the window. That's unbelievable. So Spanberger is now expecting you and me to believe that she cares about affordability and whether or not you and I, Mr. and Mrs. Virginia, can afford things. We can afford to live our lives. We can afford food. We can afford to go to the doctor. We can afford pick something. And of course, if you can't afford it, if it turns out later that you can't afford it, it's not her fault. It's Trump's fault. But Trump hasn't proposed over 50 different tax increases, has he? Anybody? If anybody out there can remember where that happened, please let me know. Again, the tariffs, you're going to find a lot of people like me who disagree with the tariffs. We understand tariffs. Unlike many of you morons who don't understand economics, we understand how tariffs work. So the only way a tariff's going to hurt you, let's just use this an example, something most of you out there could go out and buy. Flat screen TV. You go to, I don't know, Costco or was it Best Buy, pick a store, and you want to buy a new flat screen TV, but that flat screen TV came here from Japan. And in order for Japan to get that flat screen TV into the United States, they had to pay a tariff, which means they had to pay more money to get it here, which means that the people bringing it here, the wholesalers, had to pay more money for it, which means they're going to pass that on to you. So in essence, you're being taxed. See how it works? I get it. And I don't, by any stretch of the imagination, fancy myself some sort of super genius. But I do understand some basic tenets of economics. All right. So if you want to avoid that tax, that increase in the cost of the TV, don't buy the TV. See? Problem solved. You don't want to buy that new BMW from Germany that they had to pay an extra tax on for the tariff? Don't buy the car. I mean, guys, you're not being forced to buy a new TV. You're not being forced to buy a new car. There are a lot of things that the tariffs are covering that you don't have to buy. Now, if it comes to food, different story. But again, if that's happening at the federal level, then wouldn't you think that at the state level, people like your governor, people like your General Assembly would look to cut costs at the state level so that you're not paying twice as many taxes? You're not paying state and federal along with whatever local taxes you're paying. Thank you, Richmond. This isn't that hard to figure out. Why do you insist on being so goddamn stupid? Why is your hatred of Donald Trump so overwhelming that it causes your brain to shut down and you can't think things through? I mean, seriously, I need to understand what's happening. Is it something in the food? Is it something in the water that you drink in your particular area? Are they putting something in the water? I mean, none of it makes sense to me. But again, back to Spanberger and her response. So she's concerned about your affordability, your cost of living, what it's going to take for you to get through the day. And so we're going to raise taxes, over 50 different taxes, new and add on to existing. We're going to raise Virginia's income tax. How the hell, and again, Democrats, please explain it to me. How is that going to make things more affordable? If the state government, along with the federal government, is taking money out of your paycheck, how is that making things more affordable for you? Come on, make it make sense for me. Help me to understand. So that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're up against. And that's why people like me And it doesn't have to be Republicans. It can be libertarians. It could be independents. It could just be people with common sense who understand what the word affordable means, thus affordability. Can you or can you not afford these things? If you can, great. If you can't, why are you going to increase cost? So that's what we're dealing with. So that was Spanberger's response. How she think, and again, you have to be an absolute buffoon to understand what she said is going to make things more affordable. I just don't get it. It's one thing to genuinely be stupid. I know that not everybody out there can be as smart as other people. Some people just aren't very bright. But some things are just so basic, so commonsensical that you think to yourself, well, you have to not want to understand. You have to purposely choose to be that stupid. I don't know what else to call it. Anyway, just had to get that off my chest and get it out there. But again, share this with any of your Democrat friends. Maybe they can explain it so that you and I can understand it. Because right now, it makes absolutely no sense to me at all.